You've trekked across countless plains, forests, mountains, caverns, but finally, the desert is ahead of you. Across the sandy plains, you see the final fortress. You infiltrate, find, and defeat the boss with ease. Victory is yours. But as you sit in the crumbling base, you realize you're all alone, and there is no one coming to rescue you. You have only your memories and the games you hold so dear to keep you company. Can you survive? This is Desert Zone Discs. Hello, I'm NickRPGreen, and welcome to the very first episode of this new podcast, Desert Zone Discs. This is the show where we take a content creator, streamer, or someone influential in the video game industry, drop them into a broken, crumbling desert zone base, and let them talk about their favorite video games. And if you're thinking, isn't that just a rip-off of BBC's Desert Island Discs? Then I'm going to tell you that it's time to introduce our first guest. It seemed appropriate for the very first episode to start with someone very special, a fierce rival, a fellow speedrunner, and my good friend, Hau5test. Welcome, Hau5test, to
Hello.
Desert Zone Discs.
Wow. What big words. Thank you.
How do you feel about being the first ever guest on Desert Zone Discs?
Well, I think that definitely gives me an advantage over everyone else because I'm part of the very first episode. And if you're going to look back after 1,000 episodes, I can still say I was number one.
Crikey, if I'm still going after 1,000 episodes, I've done something very right.
Yeah, we'll see.
House, I believe you have picked a number of music tracks from various games that you want to talk about. So let's sort of talk about you first of all, because that's what we're actually here to do. We want to tell the audience about you. Why? Who
How
is
did we get here?
Who is Hau5test? How have we got here? Why are you my very first guest? So talk to me about gaming in general. What's kind of your thing when it comes to gaming? Why do you play? What's your main muse?
Sure. Well, my name is Hau5test. That whole thing started in 2014 when I had to pick my first PSN username. Before that, I never really had to think about that. I'm 30 years old now, but back then, I was just merely like 20, I think, 21 maybe. And it was very interesting. Until then, I was really mostly playing single-player games, maybe local multiplayer. Yeah, throughout the years, I've been going through a lot of phases of both content creation as a YouTube creator, if you want to call it that. I did gaming news a bunch. I did some more focused streaming on just single games. And well, lately, since the start of 2021, I am doing speedrunning and mostly focusing on Metal Gear Solid for more of those things.
Boy, howdy, that sounds very familiar somehow. I'm not quite sure. That's ringing a bell in my head for some reason. I'm not quite sure.
We have roughly the same origin. Many of us started in the beginning of last year, and ironically, most of us connected right through MGSR.
I think you and I both joined MGSR at pretty much the same time. And that's where our rivalry began.
Yeah, back in the tournament days.
But we'll talk a little bit more about speedrunning and Metal Gear later. What? Tell me about some of your earliest memories with video games. What was your first console? What's the first game you ever remember playing?
Oh boy, that's way back when I was a little child. It was, of course, not even my own console or anything. It was my cousins. My cousins who were older than me, they had a Nintendo Entertainment System. And of course, I played Super Mario Bros. Like everyone else. I also played Tetris there, Football World Cup. and many other things. And later they also had a PlayStation, so I thankfully got to keep that NES and got to play it for myself, and that was a great time. Very simple games, but with a very high skill ceiling, as we can look back nowadays, where like, I mean, what is the world record for SMB one? It's like crazy task level, like a few frames off from the task.
It is down to a few frames now. It's amazing. It's
back
quite,
in the day,
quite amazing.
Back in the day, we just played the game. We didn't think about beating it with fast passion, and just enjoyed it. And for all its simplistic means and the graphics and all that, it was just the purest of joy there, right? Especially thinking back, well, how gaming is now with microtransactions and digital downloads, and like, no. Maybe that's why I also come back to that more often than not.
No. You're saying we. Who is we? What memories do you have of who you were playing with?
I mostly played with my little sister. She's like 3 years younger than me, and like after I got that NES from my cousins, who I also played with, of course, multiplayer. I was the classic Luigi at that time back then. But then I got to be the big brother for my sister, and my very first really own console that I got first was a PlayStation 1, the PS1, the smaller version of the reiteration of the original PlayStation. And what great games we had. Games that only Europeans really know, like Americans or just non-Europeans listen to this. We had Asterix versus Obelix, just like a little mini game thingy. Way before I think even Smash Bros was a thing, or Mario Party. It's hard to tell. I was mostly in the Sony, area, and of course Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. That was like one of the first games I really played a lot. I sit down, I grinded it out, I got real good at it. And even with local multiplayer, like Graffiti, for example, I got all the zones in my color. I always win horse. Like. That was my thing back in the day, and I still got my copy to this day with me. Like, I could pop in right now if I want to my PS2.
If you weren't playing as your own custom skater, which who was your pro?
I mean, naturally Tony Hawk. Like, come on, I'm easy to impress. I guess I just picked the person on the front cover. Sorry, gotta be that. I stay the same.
I have a lot of fond memories of particularly Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I've played most of them in the series, but yeah, 3 was kind of like the real landmark of this is where this is going. It was absolutely fantastic.
It's crazy. And it was PS1. Sorry if I interrupt you, but that was just on the cusp of the PS2 coming on. I got that way later, and a friend of mine got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for PS2 and was like, damn, this is so much different. People have actually faces now. And like, looking back, we gotta wrap around. Like, after 2 decades, we were wrapping around. We were looking at Bloodborne PSX, like, god damn, this is so good.
Yeah, it's incredible. You look at what they've done. The release this for those who are watching, like, really, off in the future from when this was originally recorded. We're recording the same week that the Bloodborne PSX demake has been released, a fan project to turn Bloodborne into a PlayStation 1 style game. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, especially like it really feels like this is what it would have been 20 years ago. From the looks of it, the sounds of it, the stupid controls, from what I heard. I have not played it myself. I talked to people who played it, and I have to admit, it's not my style of game. But I'm always curious to see about these, especially like demake projects, as they're called, going back to a different generation way back when. So it's always exciting when that comes around.
See, I'm one of the people who is constantly begging Sony to release Bloodborne on PC. Just do it. I love Dark Souls. And I love Lovecraftian stuff. So the two of them together, and I don't have a PS4, just bring it to PC, please, Sony. If you're listening to this in the far future and Sony finally did it, thank you. You're living my dream. You're living my dream.
Like, all of Dark Souls is on PC right now, right? So we're just waiting for it. I think even Sekiro is on PC. Like,
Sekiro's on PC.
Right now.
It pretty much is everything but Bloodborne. Sony just has that stranglehold over it. We can dream.
Maybe in the future. I heard rumors about leaks and stuff, but you can never trust them like 100%. So, but I would rather believe in the Bloodborne for PC version rather than Metal Gear Solid 3 being ported to PC after all those years.
I'm sure that's a topic that will keep coming back up. So let's try and get towards your first choice. Tell me tell me about the first game on your list.
The first song on this playlist is from Deus Ex Human Revolution. The second song of that OST, it's called Icarus. And it is playing in the beginning of the game when our protagonist, Adam Jansen, has just been basically almost killed, and he gets saved just because of his implants that make him a futuristic cyborg, and basically one of the first of his own kind. Because in the future of Deus Ex Human Revolution, we already passed of just having, like smartwatches or smartphones, and actually replacing entire body parts up to even the heart with machine parts. And it's a very interesting game for those people that never played it. For me, it always struck a nerve because at the same time, it took itself very serious, but it was not like overly smart that you couldn't follow the story anymore. And that's maybe also because I always had a big connection to it. The game had a very iconic style. The original release was in the iconic yellow tone.
Yep.
And the soundtrack that accompanied it, the whole atmosphere, it was mostly at night. It was that classic, cyberpunk dystopia thing of like the world is basically at the end. There's no real sunlight anymore because the atmosphere is just turning everything dark. Or even if you could see the sky, I mean, they're building now basically cities on top of each other because there's not enough space in the world anymore because of the huge amount of population. Like all of these things, they were super iconic to me. And Icarus is a song that really accompanies all of those themes. And you can, if you know the classic tale of Icarus, who flew too far to the sun with his own wings, and then sadly fell because he lost his wings because of course, closer to the sun, it gets warmer, and the hump that he used to glue these wings to his arms melted away. So it's basically the fall of man striving too far for their own good. And that's what the game also tries to implicate. Back then, at least, I was very impressed by the writing, what we had to deal with. People were even killing themselves over decisions, and we had the choice as a player to make an impact, trying to persuade them out of that or not. And I played it so often in many different varieties. I did the fully stealth playthrough. I did the very aggressive one. And through each of the difficulties as well, there's different endings. And it all comes together in the end. It's a really great game. And I don't know, I have 100 plus hours in it, especially because I started speedrunning it. It's my first speedrun game back in the day. AGDQ 2021. I saw Heinke playing this game, a fellow German. I'm German myself, for people that don't know. And it was really great. Tell already. Hey, sometimes they think I'm Swedish or Danish. So. Yeah, it's great. Like, we make great friendships since then. So it's all just a very, very awesome group to be part of. And Fantastic. That song really ties it together.
And this love for Human Revolution, were you a big fan of the original Deus Ex, or did you just suddenly pick up this one in the middle of it and just suddenly fall in love with just this game?
Yeah. It's very interesting because I never played the other games in the series. I played Mankind Divided when it came out, and was just clearly thinking it's not the same. And maybe it was also a thing where just all the trajectories cross each other. The game came out and I was right there when I needed it, maybe. And the first one back then, I won Spectre when it originally released, and everyone seemed to love it. I was basically too young. That was too early for me, I guess, with basically the same premise and everything. And then after Human Revolution, I tried to get into it. I have all of them. I have even Invisible War and The Fall.
Yeah, I know people don't tend to talk about Invisible War very much.
I acknowledge its existence, but I have to admit, like, I never play myself, so yeah. It was never for me again after that. And it's probably, again, like Human Revolution hits just the right tone there, where you can do a lot of role-playing, but not too much that you have to put in all the energy into it, right? For me, it's perfect.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's have a listen. This is Icarus from Deus Ex Human Revolution. That was Icarus from Deus Ex Human Revolution. When you started playing Human Revolution, was that still on a console, or did you switch to PC by this point? And how did that then continue for you?
For most of my gaming part, I was like more tending to be a PC gamer rather than a console gamer. Despite the beginning that I had with PlayStation, like NES, PlayStation 1, and then later PlayStation 2 as well, where most of my PS2 library was SingStar and Guitar Hero. The bigger games I actually played on PC. So Human Revolution back then, I played on PC, and that's basically where I mostly played all of the things. Because I had a focus center in my room back then in my parents' house, where it was just solely sitting there and getting absorbed by all the stories.
So what other games do you specifically recall? Was there something for you that really sort of said, yes, I need a PC. I need to be playing on PC?
Yeah, funny enough, like back then, I didn't have any means by myself to decide what I wanted to have. I was very lucky that my family was very open to the concept of having a personal computer in the house. Like, imagine it was back in the 90s. I'm old, guys. So, we got internet back then. I had to ask my mom, hey, sorry, I gotta look up something on the forum. Like, never mind, it was porn, but whatever. Please don't take any calls right now. So that's where the things were back then. But yeah.
Yes, we had to be very careful.
Come back to the games. Really, all of those things, thankfully, were easy to access on PC, be it by our sales in physical stores back then. We had something called a gaming pyramid, where literally there was a display in the shape of a pyramid, slowly building up gains on the center, and you got access to them for like €5. So it was very cheap, and that's maybe why I never was also really strained to have like the newest games. I've been reading gaming magazines back then, surely enough, and I was enjoying all these demo discs. Like, do you know demo discs?
Yeah,
Kids, do you know what that is?
People won't know what demo discs are.
There's demos on Steam today still, but if you're not getting your game for free via Epic these days, I think the idea of just having a small slice of a game as a part of a larger collective of our slices sounds maybe weird, but that was how it was back then. And for me, one of those many great games that was also Assassin's Creed. And that leads into the next song that we can
Certainly
listen
does.
to, which is
very nice segue.
I brought with us today Assassin's Creed 2's original song. Jesper Kid made that song called Ezio's Family. It's track number 3.
All right, let's have a quick listen. This is Ezio's Family from Assassin's Creed 2. Ezio's Family from Assassin's Creed 2. So, tell me about Assassin's Creed. What again? Were you like Deus Ex? Were you a big fan of the first one, and you just sort of progressed into 2, or did you pick up 2 first?
Yeah, I was one of those weirdos that actually really enjoyed the back into the past, the timeline things. I wanted to know what Desmond is doing in the future, what is happening there.
I felt like that as well. Everyone always sort of hated on Desmond and was like, "Oh, we don't care about this. We want to see what goes on in the castles and all that." I was like, "No, I want to know what happens in the future."
Exactly. Like that's the one thing that ties everything together, right? We are in this modern society. Like Assassin's Creed 1 was literally in reality, if you think about it, it was literally just in one room. One room plus the past, right? There was not much there. It was pure character involvement. Voice acting was terrible. I played, of course, the German version back then. I wasn't really keen on playing in the English original dub because I was like didn't speak it that well. It took me years to get how I am right now, but yeah, I still enjoyed what it was. Assassin's Creed 1 had one of those great things where like there's something beyond the sky. There's something out there that you don't know of yet, and it's very exciting, right? And going back into the past, and they made a very big point about it, like all these people that you're seeing, they really died in that year. Maybe not because of an assassin, but you know, historical proven things have happened back then. And I felt like, damn, I'm living in this world. And just like I said earlier, I'm a little corner there with my PC on the big CRT. Yes, those big things, not the flat ones. And I greatly enjoyed it. Though I have to say, Assassin's Creed 2 did everything that was great with Assassin's Creed 1, but like 1,000 times better. The score was great. The real world aspects of it were great, and the entire trilogy of just, you know, Ezio's story. I really enjoyed that they also followed up with that. They didn't just leave it for one game there.
The fact that Ezio has a trilogy just goes to show the impact that character had. No other character in the Assassin's Creed series has had their own trilogy of games.
Yes.
You know, they tend to just stick to one. Obviously, there's the family tie-ins. You know, Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed 4 is very much a sort of family thing. Yeah. But Ezio is the only character to have received multiple games in that way. And you're right, it is because the character is very endearing. Rome and Italy was such a wonderful place to set those games. You know, the architect, because of course the big thing about Assassin's Creed, of course, is the architecture, because you want to be able to climb on shit.
Yeah, of course, you want to be there, like all the great places you can go, and it's one of the greatest things. It's not like you can peek inside of actual like the buildings itself to be like, oh, how does a Roman live here? But you can at least like climb on there, go on top of the roof. Like there's really not any limit outside the actual gigantic sized map that you play in. Other than that, you can go anywhere really. And back then, that felt amazing. In the later games, following up with the trilogy, they also added like different gameplay mechanics, like the tower defense, which I found very interesting in the third one. So yeah, that's weird, but okay, I'm going with it. But they also took care of actually, just like unlike in animes, where some heroes stay young forever. Like think of Pokemon, right? Ash is forever 20.
Yeah, of course,
14, whatever, for 20 years. Ezio aged, and he died in the end in a little movie, very peaceful actually, and he had a very big role in the grander scheme of assassins, right? And that blend also into the actual real world story back then when Desmond was around.
Seeing that, because I mean, when you first start Assassin's Creed 2, you actually start as Ezio as he is born.
Yeah, he's born, literally there, from start to finish, right?
You're given button prompts to like move your arm for the first time, move your leg for the first time, and then to see that character progress through those games and see him grow. You know, when you first start, you're playing as him as a young lad, and he's quite quite boisterous, and he doesn't really he's a bit of a man's man. He likes to get with the ladies and all of that. Sure. But then of course there's the big turning point with his family being executed. And spoiler alert, folks, for a game that's can't think how old it is now. But yeah, there was definitely something specifically about Assassin's 2009.
Wow.
So
it's old.
There was definitely something special about Assassin's Creed 2, that sort of and you're absolutely right in your assessment of it. It was everything that Assassin's Creed 1 had done, but just turned up 1,000. It was so refined and so nice, and certainly I don't think any other Assassin's Creed has quite managed that nice balance. They've come close. Obviously, Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't as well received. Assassin's Creed, I've heard from a lot of people that Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag might be the best one.
I really enjoyed that game, basically because it was less about the assassins, which is, counterintuitive to what we said before. But what this game at least did, it made its character and setting the actual main characters. It was not just about the pirate and the assassins. It was about everyone. It was about Blackbeard, Redbeard, and all the other ones. It was really, and of course, Pirates of the Caribbean was a big thing as well.
Oh yeah,
it all tied into
let's
it.
Let's not be around the bush. They made a pirate game to capitalize on pirates being big at that time.
Maybe, but you gotta still props to them. They made a really good game. It's one of those sequel things to another sequel, where like different iterations adding new elements and old ones, and 4 really made that a lot of fun to sail. The shanties were great. Collecting these on the maps, it was all of a sudden like a jump and run game or just a collectathon. You gotta go after these songs. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going after these songs. I want to hear a new shanty. So good. So good.
Actually, Ubisoft has, I can't remember how, must have been a couple of years ago, they announced like a standalone pirate game that seemed to really borrow from from that. I think it was called Skull and Bones or something like that.
Skull and Bones.
Yeah, we haven't heard.
Ages ago.
Yeah, they revealed it at E3 one year, or one of their big sort of showcases, and we haven't heard anything about it since. So from one game that is in development to another game that has also been. You see where I'm going here? Another game that's recently been announced, and somehow I think this might link back into your songs. Crisis 4 was announced recently. What are you excited for Crisis 4? Is your computer ready for Crisis 4?
I have an i7 10700K and a 2080 Ti. I was lucky to buy one just before the 30 series came out.
You lucky
and it was like,
bastard.
you're an idiot for buying it now. There's the 30 series coming out. I'm like, I still want it. Hindsight is 2020. Good move on me.
I can tell you from someone on the complete other end of that spectrum, you made the right choice. My GTX 970 is really struggling.
Yeah. Oh well. Crisis.
Crisis.
Back then, 2013, Crisis 3 came out. It was a different time, but it was very similar to today. PCs were there, online gaming was slowly starting, PlayStation 3 was out, Xbox 360 was there. It was the age of online multiplayer gaming, right? And for me, while Crisis has a great story, and everything, and I played it at a friend's house first on the PlayStation 3. When I got it back on PC, I got myself a little AMD graphics card. Back then, they were called ATI before they have been bought by AMD.
Yeah, I remember ATI.
And man, was it nice. Like, especially in multiplayer aspect. I was never that big on Call of Duty. I played with a friend in LAN settings, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, all cool. But Crisis 3 had something unique, and that was that hunter mode, where you are an invisible hunter in the nanosuit, and you're chasing other soldiers. And if you get them, it's like Infected. They also turn into hunters. It was so much fun. The maps were great. The scenery was great.
And is there a specific reason that Crisis 3 resonated with you more than the other two? What was your reason for choosing Crisis 3 over the other two?
It was basically the one that came out then and there, and I was a person that played the modern game first and then explored backwards. So I played 3 first and then 1 and 2. But 3 was basically like the sweet spot where everything works well. And back then, I actually started in 2013 my first channel. I was also covering Crisis 3 back then. So there's not a personal tie as a creator, as a player there as well. So that's why I tend more to 3 or more than the other ones.
Well, this is your third choice. This is New York Memories from Crisis 3. So that was New York Memories from Crisis 3. So I kind of got the idea from what you were saying with Crisis that this was around the time you started getting into being a content creator. How did that come about? What drove you to go, I want to make stuff and put it on YouTube?
Well, it started when I was born, and I was brought up in the very musically, like, affinity for making music was very big. My mom was always insisting you gotta do something creative. She liked it herself. She was, making little like paper figurines and stuff, and some wood crafts. I learned that as well. But I tended more to be like always like drumming with my hands. I mean, so I had a music affinity really, and that came out, of course, when I started playing guitar, and I had a very lengthy session, like years of training on classic guitar. And later, also, of course, was part of bands, and my school even helped me to actually had stage presence when every before the winter break and the summer break, we had like a little concert. We had like music classes and people that were just wanting to sing. We basically gave them a stage, and that was fantastic. I was both part of the production team back then when we recorded it with 3 cameras. So we had a multi-camera setup, and that was my first touching point of actually learning Adobe Premiere. Back then, when it was called Creative Suite. Ooh. It wasn't part of a cloud. It was actually an annual released thing that you could keep after it was released, Crazy. Man,
no subscription services for your video editing software.
Yeah. I hate that.
So then from there, obviously, it seems that you then sort of combined that love of creativity and music with this new love of video games. So what did you how did you start? What was it you were first creating?
Oh, the very first idea came at the end of 2012. YouTube was 6 years old by then. I was like, you would call me crazy nowadays, but back then we were not watching YouTube as much as we're doing now. Like, there were barely any like recognizable creators. There were a few people maybe. And there was barely any music presence, because back then already it was like going a little bit rampant, just like TikTok is nowadays. Well, it's just like, whatever, as long as we make it money, we're gonna find a way. Unfortunately, later YouTube had to acknowledge that licensing was a thing and stuff. So, but back then, my very first YouTube video was a Let's Play. That's why there's still an email that I have with the ending LP after my username.
Oh, awesome!
And I made Black Ops 2, just the campaign. And later on, I was also very interested in like, hey, I like news. So I literally I remember back then, 2013, people were very often discussing, it's the internet. Do you really want to show your face? Do you even want to attach your real name to it? And I still don't really like to use my real name. Like, I don't hand it out like a business card to everyone. If you find out about it via LinkedIn or whatever, like, it's fine. But I still want to separate a certain degree myself as a personality, maybe. Like, I'm Hau5test. Everyone calls me House, right? And it started back then. As I explained earlier, I started with that name because of a PSN ID that I needed. And a month later, I was like, you know what? That actually is also a fine choice for YouTube channel. Because maybe the writing style is off. Not many people know of Dead Mouse, who also wrote Mouse with MAU5. Just like I'm writing House as HAU5. But it was, 2 syllables, very just memorizable, so you could just say it. How's this? Easy to recognize, and it worked out for me. I got, with the original channel, like over 2,000 subscribers back then. I was nominated for Newcomer Web Video Award, which I didn't know was even a thing. I just made it for myself, and it was very quickly connected with other, German creators left and right, and it was over an interesting time. I fell apart a little bit later when I was just not the same personality. Like, I'm not driven by success and greed, which you have to be a little bit greedy.
You kind of have to be a little bit.
It's not even a negative thing, but you have to be like, I want to make this a thing. And there's a certain degree of greed you need as well to just go for it, no matter what, right? After you made it, that's not cool. Then you're different. But I've met people back then, you believe me, you will look in their eyes and you're like, you're a fake person. Like, you can tell that. And I never liked that personally.
No.
Maybe that's why I never really tried that. Just did it for myself. And ironically, after a few years, I changed my language even from German, like my own mother tongue, to just English. Because I was like, I want to expand. I want to grow bigger. Not for my channel. I didn't want to reach a new audience. I wanted to practice speaking English. And that's where we're at today.
Fantastic.
So anyway, the next song is Minecraft.
Yes, I was gonna say how does this lead onto Minecraft? So was Minecraft something that you then also started putting on YouTube and doing Let's Plays of as well?
For me, I loved building my own world back then. Minecraft was a thing that was very popular with many people, of course. It came back a few years ago. I was very happy to see that. Like, everyone still enjoys it. It's a great game. It was worthy of the price that it was sold for Microsoft.
It's still huge, even after so many years. It's still this massive.
It's one of those rare things. It's like evolutionary. It's so simple. It can be the anything game, right?
Yeah.
You can program in it, mods make it, like mini games of it, whatever you want, really. And it's very easy also to develop for it. And it's all just JavaScript, whatever, right? And it's simplistic. Blocks. It's child friendly. You can enjoy it with ray tracing graphics, and also with great music.
It looks gorgeous in ray tracing.
Oh,
yes. When you look at Minecraft, you look at the graphics, and obviously it was designed to be simple. It was designed to be low key, so that it worked. I remember the first time I saw that preview of ray tracing on Minecraft. I was like, this is the reason to have 4K, to have the best graphics card, because it just looks gorgeous. It's incredible how it looks.
And just set the scene, you build your own little house, by the seaside. I had 3 seasons where I built different buildings, all with a different theme. And at the end of the day, you chopped all your wood, you set up your house, and it's getting nighttime. And you're just, getting ready to craft a little bit. You want to make a new little things. You plan out what's the next big step. And then this song plays from C418, the Subwoofer Lullaby.
Let's have a listen. That was C418 Subwoofer Lullaby from Minecraft. So you said that that Minecraft and that sort of side, it was about 2013, around that time. So then 2014, we're going into the next generation. Here comes the PlayStation 4. Here comes the Xbox One. Did you buy one of those consoles, or were you sticking with your PC at the time?
I mean, for the next game, I wish I could have stick to the PC, but indeed, that was a point where I had to decide a little bit, like which horse do I want to ride on? Like, is it the Microsoft Xbox One, or is it staying with PlayStation? At that point in time, I never had an Xbox console myself. Most of my friends were PlayStation gamers, so naturally I followed that trend. And it was September 9th, 2014. I know exactly that day because it was one day after my birthday that I collected some money. I went to GameStop back then when it was okay to do that. And I got myself a PlayStation 4 White Special Edition with Destiny 1. And
very fancy.
That was the start of a great gaming relationship where I was playing the game so much. It nearly cost me my university. It definitely delayed my bachelor's degree by a year or two. But on hindsight, everything went well. So I'm like, I can't be mad. It's not like, probably could have survived a few exams earlier than they did. So
in that case, as we're there, tell me about what did you do at university?
All right, so I have a bachelor's degree in applied media and cognitive sciences, which is a mixed study of 40% IT, like information technology, 40% psychology, And then the rest of the 20% is, what's it called? Economics. So it was a very interesting blend that was, presented to us in an orientation day before we finished our school and everything. And I found it to be really interesting. And it was in the next city. I was living in one city, and basically the next city is already where the university was. So I never needed to move out and, get a loan and stuff like that. I just got a small car, drove over to university, studied there, and after 5 years instead of 3, I got that degree there. And from then on, started into my job life. You don't need a master's degree to have a good life. Just bringing that up right now. You gotta be a little bit lucky and pick the right companies, I think. But for me, it worked out. And despite everything, despite spending over 1,000 hours, especially Destiny 1, the Taken King, that was what really got me into it. We had a set group. We've been raiding almost every weeknight. Every Tuesday on reset day, we're going to do a raid. That's like a set thing. Like, nobody talk to me. I'm going to my PlayStation 4. I'm going to play. It's basically the WoW that I had.
Were these with people from university, or were these with friends you already had, or who were you raiding with?
Like my best friend for years, and still is. He got me in contact with a few people, and later them connected with some of us. It was before Discord was a thing. Yes, I'm still old, and basically, like, this was just like, oh yeah, you're here, we're playing. Yeah, do you want to come next week? You're nice. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, it was so simple, and hindsight is like crazy because I was never a person that made easily connections with others. I'm still struggling sometimes with that, but thankfully it's gotten easier to connect in digital days just because we have the same passion. We have a topic to talk about, so that's where we start.
Yep.
And then sometimes you bridge off a little bit. So yeah, back then it was just like, hey, this is a group that I have. You want to join us? I'm like, yeah, sure. I would like to raid. And in the beginning of Disney raids, there was only one for an entire year, right?
Yep.
Then later they actually added more activities. Every half year there was a raid, and I should have put on a song in this playlist from the Taken King because that was the biggest impact that I had. But when the game started, there was still a huge like single player aspect to me. It was all online, but I love playing the PvP part. I love playing the story, and I really love the song that came with it in the beginning called The Fallen. And that is basically the theme of the very beginning when you launch the game. It has like a big horn, just like 3 notes in it, and it's very recognizable. A great leitmotif that gets you through the entirety of the game.
Well, here it is. This is The Fallen from Destiny. The Fallen from Destiny. So, tell me about your experience with Destiny 2.
Destiny 2, it broke my heart when it came out. It tried to be something that wasn't Destiny 1, which is, good. It's necessary for a sequel. And also at the same time, it wasn't Destiny 1, and that was very bad for it. And throughout the life cycle of Destiny, I've been an avid fan of Bungie, the creators of both Halo and, of course, Destiny, and many other things. And ironically, like, coming back to real life stuff, they left first Microsoft to be independent. That was when the second year of Destiny 2 started. They made a great expansion. They killed Kate 6. I would never forgive them for that. But goddamn, they told a great story around it. So a little bit, maybe I forgive them. And yeah, they went independent. And now this day is all of a sudden again, I think it was also this week, like they've been bought by PlayStation, but not really.
Indeed.
They still stay independent, and they want to do like series and TV shows.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that relationship works.
Weird.
The time that we're recording this, there's been a lot of big acquisitions. Like the biggest one in the last week has been that Microsoft have bought Activision Blizzard, which is you know, we thought them buying Bethesda was big. This has blown everything out of the water.
It's blown everything for $69 billion.
It's insane. And, you know, of course, the biggest question on everyone's minds, first of all, is, does that mean PlayStation isn't getting Call of Duty anymore? It's like, I've got way more things that I'm interested in than whether COD goes to PlayStation.
It's like, as they said in Endgame, these are confusing times. There's Crash Bandicoot on Xbox now, and the Halo makers are producing for Sony.
It just doesn't make sense, does it? You know, you always think of Crash Bandicoot as it was the mascot of the PlayStation 1.
Yes.
And now it's owned by Microsoft.
It's bizarre world. What is happening?
It's crazy. It's all the one thing I do like about that is hopefully that means we're probably going to get some of the Activision Blizzard catalog onto Game Pass. And ever since, you know, the whole Activision Blizzard, everything going on behind the scenes, hush hush, no one likes it, you know, that all sort of fiasco, I've kind of very much steered away from Activision. I've not been playing, I've not played Overwatch, I've not been playing Call of Duty or anything like that. And the thing that I was disappointed by that was that I was going to miss out on Crash 4, because I'm a big Crash Bandicoot fan. I played through the Insane trilogy. I speedrun Crash Bandicoot 1 on the Insane trilogy, so I was really excited for Crash 4 coming out. So yeah, I'm hoping that this means I actually might get my hands on Crash 4 at some point.
Very likely, I would say. You know what? Before all of this happened, and this is a great segue, I'm going to give this for you for free. Before Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, they also bought someone else, and that was ZeniMax. You know what?
It did.
ZeniMax also had like great games tied to them, Dishonored, for example, and another little game called Doom. And that's a great bridge to lead over to one of those songs that I played, Doom 2016. Absolutely loved it, smashed it, played it a lot, over and over again. I cannot connect with Doom Eternal. It's gone too complex. It's like I have too many options. Please make it simple again. Thank you. But one of the things that stayed great throughout the entire time was the soundtrack by Mick Gordon.
The soundtrack to Doom 2016 is just absolutely fantastic. Musical blitz. So why have you chosen Doom and put Doom on your list?
And Doom 2016, when that came out, I finally had money. I finished university. I got my first job. What was my first big purchase? A 1080 Ti, of course, when it was brand new. And, of course, Doom 2016, it runs great. It has been developed very great with the ATAC engine. And yeah, everything just came in together there. So it's a great game, great flow. And of course, the soundtrack, which is basically pure adrenaline for your ears.
Just non-stop.
Really helps. Non-stop, yeah.
Which track have you chosen?
I've chosen, of course, Rip and Tear.
Rip and Tear.
Until that is done.
This is it. From Doom 2016, Rip and Tear. Tear from Doom. Oh, it's just glorious, the ears.
I'm still nodding. So good.
One of the reasons why you're here as my very first guest is because we have this connection. We are part of a fantastic community. What is it that you do?
Well, not only did I start speedrunning as a thing in 2021 with Deus Ex Human Revolution, very quickly also in February, I was like, man, this is a game series I really like. And you asked me a great question beforehand if I played this in my childhood. I have to say, no, I didn't. I actually played this like 2013.
I was really surprised.
Way later. Yeah. So Metal Gear and specifically Metal Gear Solid, the Solids 1, 2, 3, were a big part of my life in my, young adulthood. I still count the 20s, especially now being 30. Looking back, the 20s are still a time where you grow. Just because you're 18 doesn't mean you stop becoming an adult. There's still a lot of things that happen to you where you still don't know a lot of things. You figure still a lot out about yourself. And Metal Gear Solid, probably maybe even more as a young adult rather than just as a child, really gave me something to think about. And the most impressions I took away, because maybe it was also intended to be like that, was Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 1, 1998, a little bit clunky, tried a lot, very innovative, great. But, violence isn't cool, we're doing this, it's bad, sure. But when you get to when an artificial intelligence is telling you gotta do this thing, you gotta kill your own adoptive father, just because we're trying out a system, and what the shit is happening? And why is this guy flying over? And this is a fat dude on roller skates. What's happening? Welcome to Metal Gear Solid 2, guys. It's great. Yeah, we're part of MGSR, the Metal Gear Speedrunners, a great community. I think it's one of the best speedrun communities. Especially, I talked to Recode, the Dutch speedrunner who does other things like Ape Escape, for example. And he also about MGSR. It's a great community that's very tight knit, very putting stuff together, event focused. There's probably others as well. I think the Bloodborne or just Soulsborne community is very cool, just as the Sonic community. Shout outs to those as well.
Yeah, the Sonic community is massive.
Massive. And they just get games.
Wonderful people coming out of them. I mean, we've kind of had a bit of a running joke over the last year. I mean, both you and I have sort of developed as Metal Gear speedrunners in the past year. We both joined sort of January of 2021, and as we record now, it's now February 2022. And seeing the community grow and the games get more coverage in various speedrunning marathons. We kind of have, as I was going to say, we have this sort of running joke that these days it's not a speedrunning marathon if you haven't got at least a Metal Gear, a Sonic, and a Resident Evil in it, because you'll definitely find that one of us is going to be in there.
Ironically, where are the Mario games? Sometimes I don't see them at all.
It's
for an
crazy.
Entire freedom marathon. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Despite it being one of the most popular games, right?
Super Mario 64 is often regarded as one of the the greatest speedrunning games, but I don't know, you just don't really see not in the sort of circles and marathons that we take part in, at the very least, and I'm not saying that's because we do obviously we do some niche marathons and things like that, but we're also we've been at ESA, FTLG, UKSG as well, and of course, I don't think I think I'm doing a disservice if we don't mention GDQ.
Of course.
As we record, it's been a few weeks since Awesome Games Done Quick 2022, and the entire event, we had Apache Smash doing Tanker, MGS2 Blindfolded, but of course the really, really big one, it was so special, and it meant a lot to so many of us. D-Limes 13 closed the event with Metal Gear Solid 1, all bosses, extreme, console. It was just incredible after what's been an incredible year of Metal Gear Solid.
You and I both, we have a great relation to Metal Gear Solid 1, really, where we both, at least for me, that's the first game I wanted to learn, Metal Gear Solid, 80%. I was like, looks interesting. PC version, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, yeah, sure. A little bit faster than Deus Ex Human Revolution 80%, which was around that time for me 42 minutes. So it was about the same length. And then 2021 happened, and a lot of improvements happened. We were part of a tournament where we played all bosses. So instead of 80%, we going through all the boss fights. The game basically puts us through normally through the story. Great stuff. I got kicked out very early from Volcanic Akuma, who was at that time the best player actively playing a game.
I mean, no shame in that. He did go ahead and win the tournament. You did get knocked out by the tournament winner. And like me, was that also your first competitive speedrunning experience?
Actually, not quite. I did with the Deus Ex people a few Human Revolution 80% speedrun races, but I have to say it was just 1, 2 maybe, and then I was in MGSR. And these people, I love them. They're crazy about their races. They love doing
absolutely.
them every now and then. It's like so often. Especially for me in 2021 at the end, I was constantly having guests over just running MGS2. I myself was running. People that are just friends with me, they were like, oh, I'm going to do a race. You want to host it? I'm like, sure, I take free content and it's greatly clicked. Let's just say it how it is.
Again, I'm probably doing a disservice we don't shout out JMC and Theory.
Yes,
who are two of the biggest MGS2 race rivals in the community. Like, if they're not sleeping, they're probably thinking about when their next race against each other is going to be. It's absolutely fantastic to watch that rivalry. And it's at
a point where they're constantly burned out, and the next day you're like, "Oh, you want to do a race? Sure, I'm in."
You want to do another race?
Sure.
Everyone pile in. We're watching JMC and Theory again.
It's a staple of the community. We really love it.
It's a fantastic community to be a part of, and there's rivalries. Myself and the house have we have a rivalry.
I think was it Summer UKSG, right? The first one we did, Metal Gear Solid 1 PC Easy All Bosses.
We did.
Right at the end of the tournament, we were like, we're going to sign up, sure. And I think that's the one I won barely after my game crashed. I had to load a save. Oh my God, what's happening?
We really wanted to do it because we were both in the tournament together, but we never actually faced each other in the tournament.
Yeah, it was one of those things.
So it's kind of like our swan song to get our own race. But moving away from MGS1, tell me what is it about MGS2 that made you pick that for this list over the others?
So KCE Japan was doing their own music back then, and with Metal Gear Solid 1, and it's a good soundtrack. I like it. It's a very video gamey soundtrack. And for the sequel, MGS2, they brought on Harry Gregson Williams, which was doing stuff for Hollywood already, and it really elevates the whole production. It's like if you add more it's like in MGS5 when you have soldiers of different qualities. If you add more S-tier people to your base, the whole thing gets better. And that's the same thing, I think, what they did with MGS2. They added so many more people that are just in their field, the absolute best. And it was a great relationship when Harry Gregson Williams delivered some of the most iconic tracks of video game history. So the next song that we have here in the playlist is called Yell That Sound, which is played during boss fights. And it's one of those most hyped things where you're like, okay, we're on. It's a fight. Let's go.
It really exemplifies that idea of you need to rush, you need to be ready, you need to go. You someone is trying to kill you. Move. So here it is from Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. It is Yell Dead Cell. Yell, Dead Cell, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. And we're going to stay with Metal Gear for another short while, because it is your... you did take the liberty of picking two from the series, but we're dropping the Solid. So I feel like that's fair enough. They're slightly sub-series, maybe. Nah, it's your playlist. You can do what you want. So... obviously you really got into Metal Gear Solid 1, and then you really got into Metal Gear Solid 2, but you've actually played quite a lot of the games and speedrun a lot of the games. You speedrun MGS3, you were in the Twin Snakes tournament, but one of there's two games in particular that when I think of those games, I specifically think, House would be the person to talk to about this. And that's Metal Gear Solid Mobile and Metal Gear MSX, because I've watch you speedrunning Metal Gear MSX, and you look like you're having an absolute whale of a time.
It's a great game, especially as a speedrun. First off, it's a little bit the simplicity. Like, you don't have to think about it much. You need to know your lines. You have to switch between all these door cards, but thanks to very smart people before me that routed it all out. Shoutouts to Sergeant Silent, Mini Omega King. We already know how to most optimal go through all the rooms, ideally only once. And so for me, I had a very lengthy learning session with Sergeant Silent. I recorded it all. It was 3 hours long. And then after that, I was like, do I have to do a run? You gotta do a run. Okay, I'm gonna do a run. And, he's American. I'm European. So the time difference was like, you're gonna end your learning session at like 2 a.m. I'm like, oh God, I gotta play this game. But after a little bit of a break, I'm coming always back a little bit here and there to this game just because it's fun. It's like 20 minutes. It's not much of an investment if you want to do a speed run. And because it's so simplistic, I really enjoy it. And it is joined by a great soundtrack as well. Just like I said about Casey Japan's music for Metal Gear Solid, I think going a step back to even simpler times with even less, music instruments as a choice. It's this classic 8-bit era sound, which I really loved. Like even back then when I played on my Game Boy, Tetris, the Pokemon series, and many more. That's why I put on the list from Metal Gear OST from the MSX, The Return of the Foxhounder, which is the ending theme when you beat the game. It's a great winning tune. It's so bopping. And I think if everyone listens to this after this, hopefully they agree as well. It's really good.
You've defeated Big Boss. The base is about to explode. You've climbed that really, really tall ladder, and then this kicks in. Return of the Foxhounder from Metal Gear. Original Metal Gear for the MSX, Return of Foxhounder. So your last entry in your musical playlist that you've taken with you to the crumbling, destroyed desert base that you've so heroically defeated. Interestingly, you said this is actually a game that you've not played.
Indeed. Because it's also really hard to play these days. It's called Snatcher. Another Kojima game, which has this role-playing aspect in here. And also has, again, this like cyberpunk setting. Again, I have affinity for that. I really love it. Everything that's like a little bit alternate story and also futurism, really great. And this is followed along, actually, by a song to a game that I never played. The irony is, I got through it because of a video called Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake. And if you've seen this video by Steak Bentley, the 3.5-hour epic journey of explaining why Metal Gear Solid 4 has been a mistake, you know this song because it's the beginning intro and the outro at the end, where it's just like, Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake. That's it. And then the beat comes in, and we're going to listen to the song probably quicker now, and I'm going to talk about it later. It's so good. It's like the city funk vibe, which comes back a little bit now again with our great tracks. And it starts with this really great bass. And this is where I'm just a pure musician. I play guitar, e-guitar, was in bands, and I also play a little bit of jazz in my day. Not really great, but, just like bopping along with the groove. The groove thing was always with me. And this bass line, it has it all.
All right, let's have a listen. So this is One Night in Neocobe City from Snatcher. Snatcher, One Night in Neocobe City. Well, House, I'm afraid that your time with me is coming very swiftly to an end. The base's power is starting to get low. You are going to have to conserve as much electricity as you can before the generators finally crumble. But there's still a little bit of time for some fun. So, as you found this power outlet, and there was a monitor attached, you are allowed to have one games console with you. So if you could only have one games console, which one would you pick?
Obviously, to me, the most iconic console that I ever owned, and that has also the greatest library of all time, is the PlayStation 3. Not even necessarily for the PS2 titles. If I have a backwards compatible one, that's like extra.
Just your choice. It's your console.
Let alone like the PlayStation 1 and 3 library. Like, let's look at the Metal Gear Solid series. So you got Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, Ground Zeroes, and the Phantom Pain, even if you want to play the PS3 version. But you only have one choice. So yeah, you can play those as well. And so many other great games. Looking back, all the games that we talked about today, Deus Ex Human Revolution is on it, Assassin's Creed 2 is on it, Crysis 3 is on it. There's even a version of Minecraft. Destiny, I would probably not play anymore there. Like, that was never great when it came out back then. But, it has so many great games on there, at least for me, and the songs that I've chosen, and in general, the games that I love to play. So, yeah, that's easy. That's a PS3.
You've got your PS3. You've got your tracks that you've chosen. Finally, you do notice on the monitor that there is a link to Twitch, but unfortunately, there seems to be something wrong with the browser's cache. It seems to be all over the place, and you're only able to load up one Twitch streamer to watch. Who would you be watching? And you can't pick me.
I know. This is a mean question because I'm not. I hope I gave an impression of somebody who always wants to learn new things. So my source of evening entertainment is actually on YouTube, like watching video essays. They can be like 3 hours long. I'm sitting down and I'm watching them for 3 hours. I've never been a person to watch Twitch streams, but I still have an answer here. And that's a little bit cheesy, because if you want to see the most variety of things, and especially for my hobby, speedrunning, it has to be Games Done Quick. I know GQ is only every half year, but they've been working on other shows as well. And it's a great source where you can constantly tune in and find great content on there for games that you've never thought you can play that fast. I think, while it's a little bit cheesy, I guess, I still want to say hit Games Done Quick.
Excellent. All right. So I want to say a huge thank you to you for being the very first guest here on Desert Zone Discs. It's been an absolute pleasure. And it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you over the last year and building this rivalry, this relationship, and the stuff that we do with MGSI. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm really pleased that I was able to bring you on as the first guest here. So it kind of saddens me that I then have to dump you here in the Desert Zone on your own before you are abandoned. How can our good audience reach you? What's where do you hang out?
All right, my GPS location is Twitter, the name Hau5test. It's written Hau5test. And funnily enough, that's where you can find me everywhere else. On YouTube, on Twitch, on Discord. Hopefully I'm the only person named Houses there. But of course, you can find me on my own Discord channel, and more easily, and probably the better one, the MGSR Discord as well. So Metal Gear Speedrunners, follow them as well. I'll be around. I'll be trying to do more events for the future and bring more formats. And yeah, that's basically it. Just remember Hau5test, put that in your Chrome browser in Google, and you'll find me.
Well, whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, there will be links to Hau's socials in the description. Haus, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for being the first adventurer to venture into the Desert Zone, but it is now time to leave you be. Enjoy your tunes, enjoy your PlayStation 3, enjoy watching Games Done Quick, and await your rescue. Goodbye.
Bye.